Oh, great galactic nebulas. Another day at the Galactic Military Academy. Hooray. My name is Zark Poltron, and I'm what you'd call a senior cadet, which is a fancy way of saying I've survived 3 cycles of what the instructors laughingly refer to as education. Trust me, getting shot at would be more educational and probably less painful. The GMA isn't just any academy. No. It's the toughest training facility in the entire galaxy. The instructors remind us of this fact approximately 12 times per day, usually while we're dangling from some impossibly high structure or crawling through simulated acid swamps. Commander Grax Tool, our head trainer with his 8 intimidating limbs and voice that could shatter moons, loves to scream, "If you can survive the academy, that you can survive anything the universe throws at you." Right. Except maybe his morning breath, which I'm pretty sure violates several interplanetary weapons treaties. My species, the Poltraxians, we're built for this sort of thing. Reinforced exoskeleton, quad-jointed limbs, enhanced night vision. Most of my classmates come similarly equipped for battle. The Draconians have their armor-plated scales and crushing strength. The Vespid cadets can fly and have natural venom sacs. Even the quirky Turellians have those ridiculous shell shields that can withstand a direct blast from a level 3 pulse cannon. And then there are humans. When the Academy announced they were accepting the first human cadet, we all rushed to the data archives to figure out what exactly a human was. The results were, how do I put this delicately? Pathetic. No exoskeleton, no protective scales, no venom, no natural armor, no enhanced senses. Just soft, pink skin wrapped around a fragile calcium frame with some stringy muscles attached. Their planetary gravity is so mild they might as well have evolved in a bounce house. Their teeth? Laughable. Their claws? Non-existent. Their top speed? My grandpod could outrun them on a rest cycle. This has got to be some kind of joke, my bunkmate Krell snorted through his nasal cavities when we reviewed the data. This thing wouldn't last a day here. But then she arrived. Maya Blackwell, 5 foot 9 inches in human measurements, dark hair pulled back in what they call a ponytail, though it resembled no actual tail of any equine I've ever seen, and 2 determined eyes that scanned everything with unnerving intensity. During introduction day, she stood there in standard cadet uniform, looking ridiculously vulnerable next to Gornax, whose biceps are roughly the size of her entire torso. When Commander Grax Tool asked her why a human would dare apply to the Academy, she just shrugged and said, "I like a challenge." We all laughed. Like actually laughed out loud. Even Grax Tool's mandibles twitched in what passed for amusement. A challenge? Oh, sweet innocent human. You have no idea what's coming. 2 months into the training cycle came the infamous Hell Week. The name itself is a spectacular understatement, like calling a supernova a warm glow or a black hole a slight inconvenience. Hell Week is the Academy's pride and joy, a 7-day torture fest designed to break cadets into tiny, whimpering pieces and then rebuild them into slightly larger, still whimpering pieces. Welcome to the week that will make you question every life choice that led you here. Commander Grax Tool announced with far too much enthusiasm at 0300 hours on day 1. His mandibles clicked with sadistic delight as he paced before our exhausted formation. 1 in 4 cadets fails Hell Week. Another 1 in 4 finishes with permanent injuries. The rest of you, you'll merely wish you were dead. Behind me, I heard Dex Tormalin, a Vespid cadet, buzz anxiously. Even with his genetic advantages, 6 limbs, wings that can carry him at speeds of up to 90 miles per hour, and exoskeletal plating that could deflect small arms fire, he was nervous, and rightfully so. The first challenge was the underwater maze, 70 interconnected chambers filled with progressively colder water and decreasing oxygen pockets. My Poltraxian gills gave me an edge here, though the freezing temperatures made my exoskeleton contract painfully. The Draconians, with their massive lung capacity, bulldozed through. The Torellians simply sealed their shells and rolled along the bottom, conserving oxygen like the biological submarines they essentially are. Maya? She just kept swimming. No gills, no enhanced lungs, no special adaptations. Just steady, determined strokes, finding each air pocket with seconds to spare, her lips gradually turning an alarming shade of blue. She finished solidly in the middle of the pack, not impressive, but not the catastrophic failure we had expected. Next came the forest run, 20 miles through a simulated jungle filled with carnivorous plants, holographic predators, and very real stinging insects. The Vespids simply flew above it all. The Draconians charged through, their tough hides impervious to the thorns and bites. I scrambled through on all 6 limbs, using my natural camouflage abilities to avoid the worst threats. Maya just ran. 2 legs, steady pace, sweating profusely in a way that frankly disgusted most of us. Again, middle of the pack. I don't get it, I complained to Krell over our nutrient paste that night. She's not fast, she's not strong, she can't fly, she can't even change color. How is she still here? Krell shrugged his spiny shoulders. Dumb luck? Maybe the instructors are going easy on her because she's the first human? I snorted disgustingly through my 4 nostrils. That has to be it. Day 3 brought 0G maneuvers in the massive orbital simulator. Now this would be the end of Maya Blackwell's academy career. 0G combat is all about leveraging momentum, controlling rotation with precise thruster bursts, and adapting to complete 3-dimensional warfare. But even species with natural flight advantages struggle with the disorienting lack of constant reference points. The exercise was simple. Navigate through a field of floating debris, engage 5 combat drones, and reach the extraction point within 15 minutes. Simple in theory, brutal in practice. I was paired with Maya for the exercise, much to my dismay. We launched together from the entry port, our thrusters propelling us into the chaotic battlefield. Stay close, I ordered her, not bothering to hide my condescension. Just follow my lead and try not to get yourself killed. I've got this, she replied, her voice calm through the comm system. We separated to engage different targets. I dispatched 2 drones efficiently, using my natural ability to expel compressed gas from my abdomen to adjust my trajectory without wasting thruster fuel. When I turned to check on Maya, I was surprised to see she had already eliminated 1 drone and was closing in on another. Then it happened. A piece of debris, a simulated hull fragment, drifted into her path just as she fired her thrusters. She tried to adjust, but miscalculated. Her soft human body slammed into a bulkhead at approximately 20 miles per hour. The impact noise made even my hardened exoskeleton shudder in sympathy. Get down, I called, propelling myself toward her floating form. She wasn't unconscious, which surprised me. Instead, she was gasping, her face contorted in what I recognized as pain. Medical drones converged on our position, and the exercise was temporarily paused. In the medical bay, I waited outside while they scanned her. When she emerged 30 minutes later, Medical Officer Plex looked genuinely confused. 3 fractured ribs, he announced, his translucent tentacles waving agitatedly. Clean breaks. Quite painful for a human. She requires at least 7 solar cycles of recovery before resuming training. Maya shook her head. No. Officer Plex blinked all 4 of his gelatinous eyes. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not taking a medical exemption. I couldn't help myself. I laughed, out loud. You're joking, right? You broke your bones. Your internal support structure is compromised. Maya looked at me with those strange human eyes, completely serious. Hell Week doesn't stop for broken ribs. I'm continuing. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I sputtered. You'll just injure yourself worse. You might puncture one of your breathing sacs, lungs. She shrugged, then winced at the movement. Wouldn't be the first time I've worked through broken ribs. The grinder is tomorrow. I'm not missing it. As she walked away, moving stiffly but determinedly, I turned to Officer Plex. She's insane, right? This is some form of human mental illness? Plex's tentacles twisted thoughtfully. Perhaps. Or perhaps there is something about humans we do not yet understand. Yeah, I scoffed. Their capacity for self-destruction. Dawn of day 4. The grinder awaited. The mere mention of this obstacle course sent shivers down spines, tentacles, and whatever other appendages various species possessed. The grinder had ended more academy careers than all other training exercises combined. A 30-stage nightmare stretching over 5 miles of the most inhospitable terrain the Academy's environmental simulators could conjure. Behold your doom. Commander Grax Tool proclaimed with theatrical flair, gesturing toward the sprawling monstrosity. The grinder doesn't care about your species, your abilities, or your limitations. It will find your weaknesses. It will exploit them. It will break you. From our vantage point at the starting line, we could see sections of broiling desert, freezing tundra, electrical fields, lava pits, vertical climbing walls, underwater tunnels. And at the very end, looming like a taunt, the infamous Mount Impossible, a sheer cliff face under triple normal gravity. 1 in 5 cadets who start the grinder does not finish, Grax Tool continued, practically purring with sadistic pleasure. Today, that statistic might improve thanks to our human participant. All eyes turned to Maya. She stood at attention, her face betraying nothing, though I noticed how gingerly she held herself. Even breathing seemed to cause her pain. Cadet Blackwell, Grax Tool addressed her directly. Medical has informed me of your condition. This is your final opportunity to withdraw without penalty. Maya's response was simple, permission to begin the course, sir. Grax Tool's mandibles clicked in what might have been respect. Very well. Your funeral. He raised a limb. Cadets, on my mark, begin. The first section, a half-mile crawl under electrified razor wire through mud that conducted current, was pure misery for everyone. The Vespids had to fold their wings painfully against their bodies. The Torellians couldn't use their rolling defense. My own exoskeleton transmitted every shock with excruciating efficiency. Maya crawled with a modified technique, keeping her torso as stable as possible, using primarily her arms and legs to pull herself forward. Each movement clearly sent jolts of pain through her body, yet her face remained locked in concentration. She emerged in the middle of the pack, covered in mud, breathing heavily but steady. The second stage featured platforms suspended over pools of caustic liquid. The platforms randomly rose and fell, requiring precise timing and leaps of faith. One misstep meant chemical burns and a trip to medical. A draconian cadet named Thrax miscalculated a jump, his massive body plummeting toward the bubbling green surface. Before anyone could react, Maya launched herself sideways, catching his outstretched claw and using her momentum to swing him toward a stable platform. The move sent her crashing chest first into a metal edge. The sound she made, half gasp, half moan, made it clear that her injuries had just worsened. "Why did you do that?" Thrax asked, bewildered, as they both recovered on the platform. "Teammates don't let teammates fail," she rasped, then continued onward. The desert section tested heat tolerance. The Draconians thrived, their heat-loving biology giving them an advantage. The rest of us suffered. I watched Maya applying some kind of protective salve to her exposed skin, her movements precise despite her injuries. She offered some to a struggling Vespid whose wings were beginning to curl in the heat. "Won't you run out?" the Vespid asked. "Enough to share," Maya replied simply. The ice fields came next. My exoskeleton began to freeze, joints stiffening painfully. The Torellians rolled through with ease, their insulated shells protecting them from the sub-zero temperatures. Maya's lips turned blue again, but she kept moving, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. I found myself near her as we traversed a particularly treacherous ice bridge. Her teeth chattered audibly, her movements growing sluggish. "Your species is poorly adapted to cold," I commented, surprised to find I wasn't mocking her, merely observing. Tell me about it," she stuttered. "EB, but we've survived ice ages." "How?" "We gang." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Teamwork and stubbornness. When we reached the underwater tunnels, I hesitated. This was my moment to pull ahead with my natural advantages. Yet I found myself waiting, watching as she took several deep breaths, wincing with each expansion of her chest. "Go," she told me. "I'll be fine." I did go, shooting through the tunnels with ease. But halfway through, I found a draconian cadet panicking, his massive bulk wedged in a narrow passage, using up oxygen as he thrashed. My species and draconians have a long-standing rivalry, and every instinct told me to leave him. Then I thought of Maya helping Thrax. With a mental curse, I helped dislodge the struggling draconian. By the time we emerged, Maya had somehow already completed the section and moved on. 25 stations in, the field had thinned considerably. A third of the cadets had dropped out due to injuries or exhaustion. The rest of us were spread across the course, pushing ourselves beyond normal limits. Then came the anti-gravity maze, a disorienting labyrinth where gravity shifted direction randomly. For species evolved in consistent gravitational fields, it was a nightmare. I watched a Tyrellian get launched into a wall, his shell cracking. Several Vespids fluttered helplessly, their wing muscles spasming from the constant directional changes. Maya, surprisingly, moved through it with unexpected grace. Despite her injuries, she seemed to anticipate the shifts, using them to her advantage rather than fighting them. "How are you doing that?" I called to her as we both clung to handholds during a particularly violent shift. "Gymnastics background," she explained tersely. "It's all about knowing where your body is in space." 3 more stations. 2 more. Then, finally, we reached the base of Mount Impossible. This was where the true separation occurred. The sheer rock face stretched upward for 200 feet, with minimal handholds and footholds. Under triple gravity, even the strongest draconians struggled, their massive muscles working against them. The Vespids' wings couldn't generate enough lift. The Tyrellians were completely stymied. Only 40 cadets remained from the original 100. As the clock ticked down, barely half of those 40 had managed to scale the cliff. Maya stood at the base, studying the wall, her breathing shallow and careful. Blood had seeped through her uniform, in several places evidence that her broken ribs had likely punctured something. By all logic, she should have collapsed hours ago. "It's impossible for you," I told her, surprised by the lack of malice in my own voice. "No shame in stopping now. You've proven your point." She looked at me, a strange expression crossing her features. "That's the difference between our species, Zark. When you say impossible, we hear hasn't been done yet." Then she began to climb. Not with brute force, she had none to spare. Not with natural adaptations, her species had none. Instead, she climbed with a methodical precision that was almost beautiful to watch. Each movement was calculated to use leverage rather than strength, momentum rather than power. She found microscopic cracks invisible to most, testing each hold before committing her weight. Triple gravity pulled at her mercilessly. Sweat poured down her face, mixing with tears of pain she couldn't entirely suppress. Several times she slipped, catching herself with jarring impacts that must have sent agony through her broken ribs. At the halfway point, her pace slowed dramatically. Her fingers were bleeding, her legs trembling with exertion. A Poltraxian cadet named Vex, who had already summited, called down, "Just quit, human. There's no shame in it." Maya didn't respond. She simply reached for the next handhold. 3/4 up the cliff, she paused, clinging to the rock face. Her breathing had become ragged, each inhale clearly excruciating. For a moment I thought this was finally at the human limit reached. Instead, she began singing. A quiet, rhythmic chant that made no sense to me. With each phrase, she moved upward one more handhold, one more foothold. "What is she doing?" Krell asked beside me, having just completed his own climb. "I think it's called refusing to quit," I replied quietly. When Maya finally pulled herself over the summit edge, the silence was absolute. Commander Grax-Tool himself stood there, all 8 arms crossed, mandibles completely still in what I recognized as shock. Maya shakily rose to her feet, saluted, and said simply, "Cadet Blackwell, course completed, sir." Then she collapsed. The medical team swarmed Maya before she even hit the ground. They transferred her onto a hover stretcher, medical scanners whirring frantically over her unconscious form. The rest of us who had completed the grinder stood in exhausted silence, watching as they whisked her away toward the Academy's medical bay. "Did she actually finish?" Thrax asked, his scaled brow furrowed in disbelief. "Timed at 4 hours, 26 minutes, and 12 seconds, confirmed Commander Grax-Tool, checking his data pad, placing her 43rd out of 97 starting cadets, solidly middle of the pack. Middle of the pack. With broken ribs, against species with natural armor, enhanced strength, flight capabilities, and countless other evolutionary advantages. The human with nothing special had finished the grinder ahead of more than half the class. "Is she going to survive?" asked a Vespid cadet, wings buzzing nervously. Commander Grax-Tool's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Humans are surprisingly difficult to kill. Report to the assembly hall in 2 hours. Dismissed." 2 hours later, still aching from the grinder, we filed into the assembly hall. Medical Officer Plex stood beside Commander Grax-Tool on the stage, multiple tentacles gesticulating as they conducted a hushed conversation. "Attention," barked Grax-Tool, and we snapped to formation. Medical Officer Plex has something to share regarding Cadet Blackwell's condition. Plex floated forward, his gelatinous body pulsing with what I recognized as agitation. The human cadet sustained not 3, but 5 broken ribs, he announced, his voice vibrating with professional indignation. 2 from the initial 0G collision, and 3 more during the grinder. Additionally, she suffered a hairline fracture of the left radius, torn ligaments in both shoulders, severe muscle strain throughout her locomotion apparatus, mild concussion, second-degree burns on 14% of her epidermis, and moderate hypothermia. A shocked murmur rippled through our ranks. Furthermore, Plex continued, his tentacles twisting in disbelief, scans revealed evidence of previous injuries, long since healed. Multiple formerly broken bones, scar tissue, and joint damage consistent with years of what humans call contact sports and extreme activities. This particular human has apparently been breaking and mending her body as a regular recreational practice since juvenile stages. Commander Grax-Tool stepped forward. "Thank you, Officer Plex. Cadet Blackwell will make a full recovery and rejoin training in approximately 2 weeks." 2 weeks? Someone gasped. "With all those injuries?" "Apparently this is normal healing time for humans," Plex replied, clearly still processing this information himself. Commander Grax-Tool surveyed us with all 4 of his eyes. "Today you witnessed something extraordinary. Not because Cadet Blackwell did something no other species could do, many of you performed better on the grinder. What was extraordinary was that she completed it despite having no natural advantages whatsoever. In fact, she completed it while severely injured." He began to pace the stage, his exoskeletal legs clicking rhythmically. "The Academy accepts cadets from across the galaxy, from worlds with diverse environments and evolutionary paths. Each species brings unique strengths. The Draconians evolved on a high-gravity world with dense atmosphere, giving them unparalleled physical strength. The Vespids developed flight and spatial awareness on a gas giant's moon. The Taurelians evolved defensive capabilities to survive their world's extreme predators. He paused dramatically. But humans? Humans come from a deceptively average world. Medium gravity, moderate temperatures, a remarkable atmosphere. Yet somehow, this produced one of the strangest species we've encountered. A hologram appeared behind him, Earth, the human homeworld, rotating slowly. While most species evolved one primary advantage, Graxtool continued, humans took a different path. They developed no claws, no armor, no venom, no extraordinary strength or speed. Instead, they developed something potentially more valuable, adaptability. The hologram shifted to show primitive humans hunting massive creatures with simple tools. Humans evolved as persistence predators. They chased prey that was faster, stronger, and better armed until it collapsed from exhaustion. Not because humans were superior in any specific way, but because they simply would not stop. Another holographic shift humans in diverse environments from Arctic tundra to scorching deserts. Their planet underwent rapid climate changes that would have caused most species to go extinct. Humans adapted. They spread to environments that should have killed them. Too cold. They invented better clothing. Too hot. They developed cooling techniques. Dangerous predators. They crafted weapons. Their bodies and minds evolved to endure pain, resist fatigue, and solve problems in ways that allowed a single human with broken ribs to complete the grinder. I found myself nodding slowly, pieces falling into place. But perhaps their most unique adaptation, Graxtool said, his voice softening slightly, was their social structure. Humans are pathologically helpful to members of their group. Cadet Blackwell risked further injury to assist several of you today. This behavior seems irrational until you understand that humans evolved as pack hunters. Their survival strategy required group cohesion and mutual aid. He shut off the hologram. The lesson here is not that humans are superior. They are not. Each of you possesses capabilities Cadet Blackwell can only dream of. The lesson is that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it looks like a draconian lifting a boulder. Sometimes it looks like a Vespid performing aerial maneuvers. And sometimes it looks like a human with broken ribs refusing to quit. He surveyed us with what almost seemed like pride. Remember this day, cadets. Remember that appearances can be deceiving. And remember that the most dangerous opponent isn't always the one with the biggest claws or the thickest armor. Sometimes it's the one who simply doesn't know when to give up. 6 months later, graduation day arrived. The Grand Assembly Hall gleamed with ceremonial decorations, holographic displays of each graduating cadet's achievements floating above our heads. The attrition rate had been brutal. Of the 120 cadets who had started the training cycle, only 79 stood in formation now, spines straight, or tentacles erect, or wings perfectly folded, depending on species, awaiting our final commendations. Commander Graxtool had traded his usual battle-scarred training armor for formal military regalia, the medals of 100 campaigns glinting on his chest carapace. He moved down the line, presenting each graduate with their officer's insignia and assignment details. When he reached Maya Blackwell, he paused longer than usual. The human stood at attention, her posture perfect, no sign remaining of the injuries that should have ended her academy career. Cadet Blackwell, Graxtool announced, his voice carrying throughout the hall, for demonstrating exceptional perseverance in the face of adversity, for exemplifying the core academy value of determination beyond reason, and for reminding instructors and cadets alike that strength manifests in unexpected ways. I present you with the Order of Unyielding Spirit, only the 3rd time it has been awarded in the Academy's 400-year history. A stunned murmur rippled through the assembly as a glowing medallion materialized around Maya's neck. Furthermore, Graxtool continued, you are hereby assigned as cultural liaison and combat instructor to the 1st Galactic Fleet, with special focus on endurance training and adaptive tactics. Maya's face betrayed a microsecond of surprise before returning to proper military stoicism. Thank you, Commander. It is an honor to serve. After the ceremony, during the brief celebration period before we departed to our various assignments across the galaxy, I found Maya chatting with a group of cadets who had once mocked her fragility. Lieutenant Poltron, she greeted me with the ghost of a smile. Congratulations on your assignment to the Frontier Defense Corps. And to you, Lieutenant Blackwell, I replied, still finding it strange how comfortable I'd become with a species I'd once dismissed as irrelevant. Cultural liaison, huh? Going to teach the fleet commanders how humans manage to be so annoyingly stubborn. She laughed, a sound I'd come to appreciate over our months of training together. Something like that. Though I think you all learned the lesson pretty well during Hell Week. I clicked my mandibles in our species equivalent of a chuckle. Oh, we learned all right. The entire class now has a healthy respect for humans. Who would have thought that the species without armor, without venom, without claws, without any obvious advantages would turn out to be the most tenacious fighters in the galaxy? Maya shrugged modestly. We work with what we've got. As we parted ways, headed toward different corners of the vast galactic community we were now sworn to protect, I couldn't help but feel a bizarre sense of pity for whatever enemy forces might someday face Lieutenant Maya Blackwell on the battlefield. Because if there's one thing I learned at the Academy, it's this: I never, ever want to face a human with fully intact ribs.